Hello and welcome back to the next conversation that we're having as part of Empowerthon, which is our inaugural fundraiser for Parent Tween Foundation. So without further ado, Linda Hollenback, one of our trusted experts here at Parent Tween Connection. Hi, how are you?
Hi, good to see you.
I am thrilled to have you here. So, for those of you who are tuning in, maybe this is the first time that you've met us. Maybe this is the first time that you've heard about Parent Tween Foundation. And you're going, what the heck is this? Well, Parent Tween Foundation is the nonprofit charitable division of Parent Tween Connection. What's Parent Tween Connection? It's where parents go when they don't know where to go to get the help they need for themselves or for their kids. We've got a professional network called our Trusted Expert Network, which is why I said Linda is one of our trusted experts. All of those folks are background checked, reference checked, and just straight up awesome human beings who come highly recommended to help families and children and teens and tweens and those things that have been taken over by aliens. So
Sometimes feels that way, doesn't it?
It totally does, right? So the Parent Tween Foundation, as I mentioned, is the nonprofit charitable leg, and the mission is to help bridge the financial gap that so frequently exists between families and the professionals who can help them. So thank you to Linda for giving of your time today. And to folks tuning in, there is going to be a shameless plug to make a donation as a way of saying thank you to Linda for her time today. And if you're tuning in to us through the Facebook group, or the Parent Tween Facebook group, I do have it open. So if you've got questions, ask them. That way we can answer them as we go. But we're also on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you want more information about Linda and her business and the services that she offers, all that good info is in all those places. So know that you can find her there afterwards. So without further ado, Linda of Hollenback Consulting, you are a college and career coach, yes?
I am. Just celebrated 8 years in business, actually.
And so that's a lot of kids who get help. And so a lot of folks are like, oh, my kids have Naviance at school, or my kids' guidance counselors are helping. And yes, those are great resources. And somebody like Linda can come in and help personalize to make sure that your kid's on the right path, making the, staying on top of all the things that they need to do. That way you don't have to be the nag. And giving personalized support about how to craft the best possible essays and find the best possible matches for school. And so, Linda, the topic that you proposed for today is campus visits, which is like one of my little pet topics. And so I was like, yes, please, because we haven't talked about that in any of our conversations. So first of all, why is that something that you wanted to talk with families about to begin with? Like, why is this such a big deal?
Sure. I think the college visit, and when I say that, I want to put the emphasis that college visit can be in person, but also be virtual. I know sometimes distance or finances or whatever make the in-person visit difficult, but whether it be in person or virtual, taking the time for a college visit is so critical to the admissions process. In some cases, for some colleges, they have what's called demonstrated interest, where they actually give your teen's application a little extra check mark, a little extra bonus star because they showed interest. Because if you've got two applications that are identical and one has shown interest and one hasn't, even though they may be equally or more interested, it kind of, keep in mind the admissions officer's job is not only to accept, but to fill the seat, to get students to fill that class. And so if I've got to hedge my bets of which of these two applicants is going to come, the one that actually showed some interest is probably going to get the nod. Other schools don't use that because there is that issue of the in-person visit being sometimes financially, infeasible. But it's also on the opposite side, is for your teen, helping them to determine, is this where I want to spend the next 4 years? Are these my people?
Yeah.
What am I looking for in a college environment? I often liken it for parents to the apartment or house hunting. You think you know what you want, you have things in mind, you look at the listings online, but it's not until you start walking in where you go like, I really like this of the Craftsman style or this of the Cape Cod. Or a realtor kind of says, hey, have you thought about this? Let's go look at this one. And you're like, I don't really know if I like the listing. But when you walk in, you're like, ooh, this one feels like home.
Mhm.
This is the one we're going to make the offer on. You're going to see the same thing happen to your teen as you go and visit more schools, because
Mhm.
they will have that, ooh, this feels like home, and you'll see it come over their face. So I
Mhm.
really think it's a critically important part of the journey.
I actually had that very experience, and finances were such that my parents couldn't go with me. But going in as a music major, I had to go audition, because of course digital resources 25 years ago weren't what they are now. And so I made it work to fund my way. And I very clearly remember spending a night on campus and laying there and going, this is it. I had no clue how I was going to afford it.
Hmm.
But I very clearly remember laying in they had like a visit program where you could actually stay on campus with a host for the evening. And I remember just being like, this is where I want to be. Come on, universe. How do I make it happen? So I think that's because I
Yeah.
did have that experience. That's why this is one of my like my pet topics. It's something that I really think can inform a student and a family along the way. So what do you how do we plan it? For now, let's talk in person. Let's go with that. And then we'll also talk virtual along the way. But like what do you recommend to maximize time on campus or to
So
maximize that visit?
I'm going to actually back up a little bit
Okay.
before really even getting into the maximizing. For families who are listening who might have eighth graders, ninth graders, 10th graders, where the official tour isn't necessarily necessary yet.
Mhm.
I mean, you can, there's nothing wrong with it, but really it's kind of sophomore, junior year that really that comes in. But in that early stage, what I really recommend is start getting your teen on college campuses, start familiarizing themselves, start locally. What
Mhm.
resources, what higher ed resources do you have in your area? I'm in the greater Philadelphia area, and we are very, very fortunate here that
Yeah.
we have an Ivy League, we have a, you know, public major state, institution. We have a smaller state, mid-sized institution. We have private religious affiliated schools. We have liberal arts schools. So we have the whole gamut right here
Mhm.
within an hour
Mhm.
radius of our city, which, so again, I know we are very fortunate, but most areas have at least a couple of campuses. Go on those. Make it, grab a coffee and just sit and observe or wander around. It's not an official tour. If your family's going on vacation,
Mhm.
check to see what schools in the area. And even again,
Absolutely.
even if you don't do an official tour, at least wander through to start familiarizing your young tween and teen with what college campuses look and feel like, so they can kind of start to get that gut. Ooh, I like big, I like small, I like college town, I like,
Mhm.
being in urban center, I want more of a green rural campus, all of those things. I like modern architecture versus, the quintessential old stone buildings of the, Ivy
Right.
League, right? What are they drawn to? So I would say start there. And even as you're heading into that junior year, if you're really just starting off in the college search process, that's a great place to start before
Mhm.
spending any money and investing in plane tickets and everything else, hotels for big visits. Start locally. Even if your teen says, I know I don't want to go to college locally, it's not about the college at that point. It's about
Mhm.
finding the environmental fit. And
Right.
then from there, that will help inform the other visits that do require the
And
distance.
I've actually had some conversation with students too who are in that situation. Like, I don't want to go locally. I don't want to be that close to home. Like, I want to go spread
I
my
was that kid,
wings,
I get it.
right? I'm like, great, go to the local schools. And aside from the fact that they're here, find things that you don't like about them. Because if you don't like the dorm setup on this campus, you're not going to like that same dorm setup somewhere else.
Yep, absolutely. Now, the
So,
dorm setup, you would either need an in of a student, or that's where the official tour comes in.
right,
And
right.
so, if that's something that you want to start exploring, then you just go on to the admissions website. They all have these nice little calendars, and you click the date and the time
Hmm.
that you want to do your tour, and you just sign up.
Hmm.
Pro tip: I always recommend that you, even if you, mom or dad, are kind of steering that with the planning, which I know you often are, have the student do it with the student and let the student's email be the one that gets into the system. Show that the student is showing the interest. So
Well,
even if you're whispering into their ear when they're writing an email to admissions, let the email come from them. Let them take the lead on that.
right. Well, because that goes back to the demonstrated interest, right?
Yep.
And oftentimes I've seen with kiddos, so much of college admissions and like college selection is like process of elimination.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, okay, well, this school doesn't have this piece. I'm not going to consider it. Or that school doesn't have that piece. And that's one of the things that I know you work with students on, is not only finding the things that they do have, but the schools that have the resources that the kids do want, but helping them get rid of things and whittle it down of like, okay, but you said you didn't like this piece. Like, why are you applying to this school? It's a big piece for you. Like, why are you, like, you're not going to want to go there. Why are you wasting time and energy on it?
I mean, I know this is slightly off, but when I'm building a strategic, what I call a strategic school list with students, exactly that. If they have that, why are you you have 4,000 plus schools in this country to choose from. You're making a list of 8. Why is there any school on there that you are not, that doesn't basically check all the boxes and you were super excited about?
Right.
Pick a
Absolutely.
different one.
Well, because again, like I think back to my experience, I applied to Jacksonville University, which is a private school in Florida that didn't even have the degree that I actually wanted, but it was an in-state school. Not that it mattered, because it didn't matter for tuition. But then another small campus in New England, and then Northwestern University outside of Chicago, and then Louisiana State University. Like, could I have chosen 4 more radically different types of campuses? But I didn't know, like what we're talking about now. I didn't know that. That's why I think that's part of why it's as big of a thing for me. So, and I like the idea, like even here, I'm in the Denver area, and we have some pretty significantly different style campuses, again, within a couple of hour drive here. We don't have the Ivy that you have out east, but we still have very different campuses, and we can still get a feel for it locally. So awesome. All right. So we've clicked the button, we've sent the email from the kiddo's email address, and we've got the visit booked.
Mm-hmm.
How do I make the most out of my time there, whether it's local and I haven't spent a lot of money to get there, or especially if I have traveled a distance and spent money? How do I get as much information out of this as I can?
Absolutely. Great question. First thing is use the website and do your homework. Spend some time familiarizing yourself with the campus and what they're telling you on their website, both from a physical campus, but also a resource, programmatic. So that way you can go there and ask the deeper, better questions. Don't go there and say, do you have a study abroad program? A quick Google search would give you the answer to that. Instead, you could ask the question of, what are the best, study abroad programs for someone interested in finance, but also interested in, learning and honing in their Spanish language, right? So you can see and have them explain the great opportunity that they have for an internship in Madrid with the business program or whatever. And so you can ask deeper questions. You can ask, really get to see about the resources. That's, I think a really important thing, particularly if your kiddo has supports, has an IEP in their, in their high school. The IEP process, it's different. Once they go to college, they become part of the American Disabilities Act. So the process is different. You need to have certain paperwork, but you want to make sure the support's in place. Now, the colleges all have some level of support, but some colleges do it better. So if you know that your kid is going to need academic or counseling supports, look online, see what the things are, and then maybe even schedule a conversation with one or both of those offices. Could be the Learning Resource Center, the Disabilities Office, the Counseling Office, to get a feel for what supports will be available for your teen during their time there. The other, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then I'm thinking not only what's available, but how to access it.
Absolutely.
One of the conversations that we had last week with Lori Bender about this actual transition and helping, like, what are the things that parents don't think to talk with their kids about when it's actually time to make the transition to college? And one of the things that she mentioned was knowing where those offices are, knowing like where the tutoring center is, even if you don't have special needs or wouldn't fall under the ADA, like you still might need tutoring, and what are their hours? What building are they in? How do you get to them? Do they have a text number that you could text 24/7, whatever? Like, how do you gain access to those, not just what's there?
Absolutely.
Oh, she just actually, Lori's watching. She just gave us a heart for shout out in her call. See, I do remember these conversations.
Some other things to do, similar to meeting with any academic or support resources, I mean, also maybe cultural resources, or if you're somebody who is a strong faith base, making
Mhm,
sure that they're, again, you're looking to see, are these going to be my people? Will I find my sense of home, especially
mhm,
on the bigger campuses? I went to Boston University, and it's a really big campus, easy to be anonymous and get lost if that's what you want. Or for me, I was coming from a small town, Scranton, at Pennsylvania, and so I wanted to make sure I kind of had my group. So figuring out where my niche would be, where my home would be within the bigger university. So
sure.
making sure that you meet with those cultural centers or faith-based centers, diversity centers, if those things are important to you. But also, if you have a sense of where your teen or tween's interest is, maybe reaching out to, or having them, sorry, reach out
Mhm,
to the department. So maybe you can get that tour or meet with a professor to learn about the program itself. What makes studying finance or chemical engineering or English different at one university from another.
mhm,
I also love to, especially if you're going to be doing distance travel, ask the admissions office or the department of your major of interest to connect you with a current student so you can get the
mhm,
student perspective, because
mhm,
that's really what's going to make or break the experience for your teen. I mean, it never fails, a school that might not have been high on a student's list kind of quickly moves up the ranking after a visit if they've connected. So it's
mhm.
both sides. It's for the college to get to know your team, but also for you and your team to get to know that college and that community, to make sure that,
For
again, the
sure.
fit is there.
Well, and again, like I know from my own experience as a on the exploration side, but then visiting a campus and staying a night on campus. But I actually ended up being the person who hosted
Hmm.
students my sophomore, junior, and senior years. It was a great way to cover my own room and board, but it was a great way. Like it was like a Sunday through Thursday kind of program that I would get paired up with them when they made their appointment to come to campus. And then based on their interests, like you're saying, it was my job. Like, and I had a team of other, like my peers, my college, friends, whatever, whom I could reach out to and be like, hey, Linda, you're a finance major. I've got a pre-frosh coming in who's interested in finance. Can you take them to one of your classes tomorrow? And then like I would pass them off to that student and they'd go spend the day there. And
I was just going
some
to say that,
schools,
like, not only the overnight visits, but sometimes you can sit in on a college class, which is a
absolutely.
great way to get a feel for, is
Mhm,
it, I mean, and it's, you've got to keep it, that's one little slice of a day, but, there's really large lecture style classes. There are more
mhm.
discussion oriented classes, right? So getting that feel of what college is like and what the dialogue in the camp classroom is.
Well, and it was also good. I remember sometimes some of the students would come and like they'd expect me to be like their entertainment and guide them around on campus. And I'd be like, dude, I've got an exam tomorrow. Like, I hope you've got a book. Like, here's the key card to get in. Good luck. Like, this is the reality of college. Like, yes, I'm here to have fun, but I got school to work on. And so for some of them, it was oh, I really do have to study. Like, yes, you do. It's not all fun and games.
Absolutely.
Do you recommend that they do any kind of like journaling or tracking of their thoughts?
Absolutely. Yes. I always tell my students, whether it be on their phone, for the students I work with, I love spreadsheets. So we have a little spreadsheet, or just a little, grab a little tiny jotter notebook, old school notebook to
Uh-huh.
take. So that way, especially, a lot of times families set up multiple college campus tours, either, maybe two or three in one day, or over like if they're doing a week long, like college extravaganza,
Sure.
they will all start to blur together if you don't
Mhm.
take notes. So it doesn't have to be novels. It can be, what are my top three takeaways? What are what would I rate it? Like right off the tour, right off the visit. What would I give it a rating from 1 to 10?
Hmm.
What questions do I still have? Do I want to know more? Something like that. So just what are the 3 things I liked? What are the 3 things I didn't like?
Hmm.
What else do I want to know? Just some quick little notes. That way it gives you something to refer back to. Also make sure you
Sure.
take some pictures on the campus. Yes, there'll be pictures
Hmm.
on the website, but take a few pictures so you can kind of remember things that stuck out to you, whether again good or bad.
Hmm.
Other thing, grab the student newspaper. See what
Hmm.
the issues are, what the events are happening on campus. Grab lunch on the camp. I mean, I know it's you want to go and get into the area, and I think that's important too to see, well, what else is there off campus, but
Hmm.
have at least one meal on campus to test out the food and ask a few students, what do they think of the food? How is the rotation? What's their favorite meals or favorite dining spots on campus? It's going to be important. It sounds silly, but you're going to have to live there and eat the food there for 4 years. So you want to make sure that it's something that fits your dietary needs and your taste buds.
Absolutely. And it's same thing with like the dorm setup. And can you see yourself being happy here? Because if you're not happy there as a human, you're not going to be successful as a student. Like you're a human first.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So we've covered a lot of ground based on an in-person opportunity. And to your point at the beginning, in-person just isn't always viable. The finances, number one, are a huge deterrent in a lot of cases. But sometimes just the time off, like, mom and dad don't always want to send their kid off across the country to go tour campuses by themselves, but mom or dad can't get off work or just whatever the case may be. What are your best recommendations for students and families when in person just isn't viable?
So honestly, tips are very, very similar. One, do the virtual visits. Most campuses will have a virtual info session, even a virtual tour. There's also on YouTube, there are different websites where they have um, a virtual visit
Mhm.
experience that you can kind of even go into different buildings. So take advantage of those. Maybe even if you can make the time, sit down and do it together. So you're experiencing it together because you're going to see things differently than your team is going to see them.
Mhm.
Two, do the online research, really hone in. And then from there, if you're not going to be able to do the visit, meet the people, connect with the people by reaching out over email to ask a couple questions or asking for a phone or a Zoom call. So have the
Mhm.
conversation with the admissions officer, have the conversation with the professor, ask to be connected with a student over, they most of the time students are happy to pass along their cell phone. You can do a FaceTime and
Mhm.
get that student perspective. All of
Mhm.
the same things. You can check out the student newspaper online, right? Follow the school's social media to see what they're talking about, what they're highlighting, what do they value,
Sure.
right?
I didn't even think about the newspaper being online because I don't live on student campuses or on campuses anymore. I don't engage with students in that same way like you do. Newspaper wasn't online back in my day, so like I wouldn't have even thought to do that. And certainly social media about campuses um, wasn't what it is now. I do feel like there's an aspect, like my first thought when you were like, check out the social media feeds was like, okay, but that's still going to be like the highlight reel, like we see from everybody else, right? Like all the
Mhm.
good things. But I imagine that students who post on their own Instagram or Twitch or whatever, that if they're tagging the school, like that could be another way, don't just look at the school's feed, but look for where they've been tagged in other posts as well to get more information. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think that if a student has particular interests, like extracurricular interests, look on the student organization's website and then look up and see if the different student orgs that you're interested in have social media and start to follow them to get a sense of how active the groups are.
Hmm.
Sometimes the social media can kind of fall if it doesn't get past, the logins don't get past. So it's not
Hmm.
the be all and end all. So I always say look at that with caution. But if you see there's some really active, whether again be professionally oriented or you've always loved a cappella singing and so you want to be in the a cappella group, see what they're up to.
Sure. Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned an a cappella group, possibly because you know that I'm in one and it's my personal current favorite. We had an event called Acapalooza here in Denver a couple of months ago, and there was a phenomenal a cappella group from the Colorado School of Mines, which is like on the outside there, like they're the engineers there. It's a rough school to get into, like, it's a very elite math engineering school. And they had this amazing a cappella program. Like, they don't even have a music program on campus because that's just not part of what the school has. But this group was like, it's not something that I would have ever expected on such a math, science, engineering focused campus. But they were brilliant. They were an amazing group.
Yep. I mean, the opportunities in terms of clubs and organizations on college campuses, I mean, completely runs the gamut. Everything from, Harry Potter Quidditch clubs to chess clubs to zombie film fanatics to, I said, professional associations. So it's all there. So you look, whether it be something that you've been doing through high school or whether it be something that you've just always wanted to try.
Right.
College is a great place to do it. So look to see if your opportunities, those experiences are there for you.
Awesome. I love it. And obviously, Linda, you and I could talk about this forever, given that we work in similar spaces in so many ways. But we do need to wrap it up. Not everybody's got all day to listen to us gab. So I'm going to say to folks who are listening, I know you just got some really good information. I even learned things, and I work in a very tangential space to Linda. Again, like I said, you were going to get a shameless plug. Here's the request. Follow the link in the description of the event wherever you're tuning in from. Make a donation, even if it's like $5 or $10, it all adds up. And we are having a little bit of a friendly contest among our participants, our speakers, that if they are the fundraisingest participant, if you will, that we are going to take 20% of the donations that come in through their link and donate them to another nonprofit of their choice. Thank you, Lori. Lori Bender just commented, great conversation. I don't think you can see that, Linda, but awesome. Thank you.
Thanks,
Linda, you had actually proposed two of them. And if you're game, we could split the 20% between the two if you are our fundraisingist. You had talked about the Young Entrepreneurs Academy Philadelphia, and you had also talked about Girls Empowered. You want to give both of them a shout out?
Sure, absolutely. So I am a mentor for the Young Entrepreneur Academy Philadelphia. This is actually a national network. So if you're not in the Philadelphia area, look to see if there's a Young Entrepreneur Academy near you. It is a phenomenal program that works with middle and high school students who are interested in starting their own business or nonprofit. They actually guide them through over the course of a year. And so they go from student to CEO. They end up, the final event is a Shark Tank like event where they pitch their event and get funding from investors to help support it is a phenomenal program.
Where was this when I was starting or when I was in high school?
Absolutely. And then Girls Empowered is a local group here in the Philadelphia area that does leadership programs, confidence building for girls, again, kind of upper elementary, middle school, and high school, helping them to build their confidence, have healthy relationships, build their leadership skills, all of those things. And they've been a really phenomenal organization. I've seen them in progress in their summer camps, and I've been a speaker for them in the past. So always love to shout out for Girls Empowered as well.
Awesome. I love it. So if you are listening and you are able to make a donation, like I said, if it turns out that Linda is the one who helps us raise the most funding individually, we will make donations to those organizations. So Linda, as always, thank you. I love having you around. I love having you on our Trusted Expert Network and being able to refer folks to you. So thanks for being around and for everything that you do for kids.
Thank you so much. I'm passionate about parent-tween connection, and I love that you've launched the foundation, and I'm cheering for great success and lots of fundraising. Come on, people.
Yeah, that. All right, everybody. We are going to be back shortly with another conversation live, again, through our Facebook group. But if you can't catch us live, we'll be back on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. So thanks, everybody. And thank you, Linda.
Have a great day.